We're going to talk about circumference of a circle. Now, circumference is just the measurement around the outside of a circle. And so if you're familiar with perimeter, this is the same concept as perimeter for other shapes, but for circles we call it circumference. But it's, again, just the same thing as perimeter. So if you have a circle, it's the measurement around the circle. So let's say you had a circular garden that you wanted to put a fence around. How much fence would you need? You would measure the distance around that circle. That is what circumference is measuring, is the distance around something. Now the formulas to calculate circumference, you don't need to memorize these because they're on your formula sheet, but you need to understand them. You need to especially understand the concepts of radius and diameter of circles. So if you don't know that, you need to watch the video on Facebook of Circles Part 1 to understand radius and diameter. And so when you look at your formula sheet, you'll see there's actually two formulas for circumference. One is circumference, which is represented by C, equals 2 times pi times r, or C circumference equals pi times d. Now, you need to know a couple of things. One, C stands for circumference, R stands for radius, so that's the radius of the circle. In this formula, D stands for diameter. Pi is just a number. It is also given on your formula sheet as being 3.14. So that's a rounded number. You can see pi, you spell it pi, it's just called pi. If you write it as a fraction, it's 22/7. If you plug that in your calculator, you'll see you'll get a long infinite number. And so here they've rounded it to 3.14. So for the purposes of the GED test, you can almost always think of pi as just this number. So it's just this constant. When we work with circles and spheres, we often just use pi to represent this number. So, but when you're talking about circumference of a circle, you can think of this symbol pi as just this constant number 3.14. So anything, any sort of mathematical operations that you can do on a number, you can do just with this symbol. And I'll show you a little bit more about that. So we see that there are two formulas, but really if you understand radius and diameter, you'll see that they're really the same formula. Because remember, in a circle, the diameter is the distance from one side to the other going through the center of the circle. The radius is just from the center out to the edge of the circle. So we know that the radius is half of the diameter, or the diameter is 2 times the radius. So when you see these two formulas, you can see that really they're the same because the diameter is really 2 times the radius. So if the radius of a circle is 5, we know that the diameter is 10. And so 2 times the radius, or 2 times 5 here, is the same as 2 times 5 is 10. That is the diameter. So these two formulas are really the same. It's just easier if they give you the problem in terms of radius, you want to use this formula. If they give you the problem in terms of diameter, you want to use this formula. But they're really the same. So let's just do a couple of simple examples. So let's say the problem, they say the diameter, D, is 7 meters. What is the circumference? I'm just going to use C as the symbol for circumference. So all we do is, well, we have the diameter, so we're going to use this formula. So C equals pi times the diameter. Remember, pi is just this number, so we're just going to plug 3.14 in for pi, and the diameter they've given us is 7 meters. So here we're just going to plug in 7. So you throw that into your calculator, and you're going to get 21.98 meters. Now circumference, just like perimeter, the units are always just going to be regular units. It's not like area, in which you have squared units, or volume where you have cubed units. Circumference is just regular. So this was the diameter of 7 meters. The circumference is going to be 21.98 meters. Let's say they give us the radius, and say that the radius is 10 inches. What is the circumference? Well, now they've given us the radius, so we're going to use this one. Circumference equals 2 times pi. Well, we know pi is just this number, so I'm just going to write 3.14. And they've given us the radius is 10. Remember, when things are written beside each other, that means multiplication. So here we're multiplying 2 times 3.14 times 10. If you put that into your calculator, you will get 62.8 inches. Now, they may make you use a little bit of algebra. So what, instead of giving us the radius or diameter, let's say they give us the circumference is 12.56 millimeters. What is the diameter? So we're going to use this formula, C equals pi times diameter. We're just going to plug in what we know and then solve it algebraically. So C, 12.56 equals pi is 3.14 times D. So now if you don't know how to solve this, this is just an algebra problem. You need to watch the video on algebra. So I'll just do it quickly. We want to get D by itself, so we're going to divide by 3.14, each side by 3.14. That's a D. This cancels, and so 12.56 divided by 3.14 equals 4. So diameter equals 4. We can flip these, and it's going to be 4 millimeters. They might give us a problem that says circumference equals 18.84 feet. What is the radius? We're going to use this formula. So C equals 2 times pi times r. So C we have, so we're going to stick that on this side, equals 2 times pi, 3.14 is what pi equals, times r, which is what we're trying to figure out. So again, we have an algebra problem. We'll multiply this together first. So we have 18.84 equals 2 times 3.14 is 6.28 times radius. Again, still just an algebra problem, so we're going to divide each side by 6.28. Again, if you don't know how to do this, you have to watch the algebra video on Facebook. These are going to cancel out, so 18.84 divided by 6.28 is 3 equals the radius. The radius equals 3. It was 3 feet. It was feet up here, so we know it's feet for the radius. Okay, now those are fairly straightforward if they give you the radius or diameter or circumference. One thing that I don't want you to get thrown by is if they leave things in terms of pi. And so if they give you a problem and they say circumference equals 6 pi, what is the diameter? Don't get thrown off by that just because they've left that symbol there. So again, we just look to our formula. So circumference equals 6 pi, so C equals 6 pi. C equals pi times diameter. pi times diameter. So what is the diameter? You really should be able to just look at this and know that the answer is 6, because 6 times pi equals pi times what? Well, it's going to be 6. Now, if you didn't see that for some reason and you started going down the path of actually multiplying this out, you would then be able to divide, you could multiply this all out, divide, and the whole 9 yards. But really, you should be able to just look at this, and this is actually a very easy problem to know that the diameter is 6. If you go ahead and do this problem, you're going to end up dividing by 3.14 of each side, and you're going to get the diameter is 6. Let's say the problem is c equals 14 pi. What is the radius? So since they're looking for radius, we want to use this one. So here it's 14 pi equals 2 times pi times r. So again, you can probably reason this out, because you're going to say 14 times pi equals 2 times pi times r. So you know that 2 times r has to equal 14. So you can probably just figure out that the radius has to be 7. But again, if you can't, you can stick 3.14 in there, but also remember that pi is just a number, so we could do this algebra just using pi. So if I want to get the radius r by itself, I can first divide each side by 2. 14 divided by 2, so I have 7 pi equals, that's going to cancel, pi times r. So again, 7 times pi equals pi times what? But the other thing you can do, you want to get r by itself, you divide each side by pi, just a normal algebra problem, and you're going to get the answer. The radius equals 7. So don't get thrown off if they leave something in terms of pi. Just treat it as a number. It's sometimes going to be an easier problem because it should be a little bit more obvious. Now, we're going to do 2 more problems. They may not give you a problem this straightforward. They may veil it in a word problem. So I'm going to put a couple of word problems up. Okay, so we have a word problem that says a strip of metal that is 10.38 feet is bent to form a circle. What is the radius? So first of all, if you don't know that that symbol means feet, you should probably know that. So you have a strip of metal that's 10.38 feet, and someone's going to just bend it into a circle. And so the question is, what is the radius? So remember radius. So what is the radius of that circle? So you need to recognize circumference means the distance around. So they're telling you the distance around that circle is 10.38 because that was the length of the piece of metal. So we now just go back to our formula sheet. Now that we know, okay, so they've given me the circumference. What is the radius? So circumference is 10.38 equals 2 times pi. Remember, pi is 3.14 times the radius. And we have an algebra problem solving for the radius. We'll first do this multiplication. So we have 10.38 equals 2 times 3.14, which is 6.28 times the radius. We want to get the radius by itself, so we're going to divide each side by 6.28. These cancel out. 10.38 divided by 6.28, you stick that in your calculator, you get 1.65 equals r, so the radius is 1.65 feet. So that's how you would do that problem. Okay, so here we have another word problem. So Joe measures a truck's tire mark in the gravel after one complete revolution as 100.48 inches long. What is the diameter of the tire? So when you get word problems, sometimes people get freaked out by word problems, but you probably need to read them a couple of times and know that they're going to give you extraneous information that you don't need. But, so what is this saying? So he's measuring a truck's tire mark in the gravel. We really don't care about the gravel. After one complete revolution. So we have a tire mark that has gone one complete revolution. So one time around, it's left a mark in the gravel, and the length of it is 100.48 inches long. So what is the diameter of the tire? So if it's made one complete revolution, we know that that is the length of the tire, the distance around the tire. And we know that that is circumference. So we know now that this is a circumference problem, and it's asking for the diameter of the tire. So we're going to go to this formula. They've given us the circumference, and now we need to find the diameter. So the circumference is 100.48 equals pi times diameter. Pi is 3.14. And now we have an algebra problem to solve for diameter. We're going to divide each side by 3.14. This cancels out. So 100.48 divided by 3.14, you plug that into your calculator, and you're going to get 32. So the diameter is 32 inches. So when you get a word problem or any other sort of problem, find the formula. If it's in radius, you're going to use this formula. If they're giving you diameter or want diameter, you're going to use that formula. Remember, pi, that symbol, is just this number. So just plug that number wherever you see the symbol pi.